I know you all love a F around and find out story as much as me. And these ultra rich, ultra woke students at Ivy League schools that cost nearly $100,000 a year spent the last week basically taking over the asylum, powered by, as I've always said, communist teachers. These people have infiltrated most positions in the educational system, especially at higher universities, and they spread communism and Marxism. And they use youthful, uneducated, enthusiastic, emotional students as their useful idiots. We saw this with, remember, during the BLM stuff at Mizzou University, which now has had to close 3 dormitories because enrollment has dropped so badly, or Evergreen College, where the teachers themselves were whipping the students up into a fervor, telling them to go do this, build a wall, get this reporter out of here. Not build a wall, but like get a human chain wall or whatever, and get this reporter out of here. I need some muscle. It's all teachers. It's all the teachers that are doing this, and coincidentally, now we've got tons of video of these teachers who are doing exactly that, telling the students to do all of these things. And guess who's the ones that are getting arrested? That's right. It's the students. It's the useful idiots, regardless of what's going on in terms of, the teachers directing it, which they are doing. The teachers are directly supporting it by hosting walkouts and doing all sorts of stuff like that. You have video of students barricading themselves in. You see, I'm happy to see progressives tearing apart the very institutions that have corrupted the minds of multiple generations. It's poetic. You see them, locking in there. You see these individuals. It depends which news site you want to read the headline from. It either says that they're anti-Israel or pro-Hamas. At this point, based on a lot of these people's behavior, it's hard to see the difference. You see this anti-Israel protesters carry flares and march to NYPD headquarters after over 150 people got arrested. Now, I'm sure they'll tell you that these 150 people got arrested simply for just standing there and doing nothing, except, of course, that wasn't the truth. Of course, they were trespassing. They were asked politely numerous times to leave private property, chose not to do that. We've seen videos and all sorts of other stories of, these mobs of people. You see this. These people, poked out a woman's eye with a Palestine flag, have been calling Trump supporters, the very same people that have been calling Trump supporters terrible things. You see female Jewish students surrounded by a mob of pro-Palestine activists forming a human chain to block her from entering Yale University. Why? Because she's Jewish. Later in the evening, she also nearly lost an eye whilst on campus. I mean, I don't really understand what these idiots think they're accomplishing, but now you see major consequences as yet another billionaire booster. In this particular case, the owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft, has now pulled his financial support from Columbia University, saying he's lost confidence in the Ivy League school's ability to protect its students amid these wild protests. Now, again, I've said before, and I'll say again, it's 100% fine if these individuals want to get together and peacefully gather, peacefully protest, but that's just not what happens. And if you also want to get a little more serious about things, it's coincidental that it's also seems like every 4 years this stuff is happening. What a coincidence. I will almost wonder if I could predict that we'll see the exact same kind of uprisings in 2028. By communist infiltrators. That's who these people are, by the way. They're communists. They're the same people marching in the street for BLM 4 years ago, are the people marching in the street for Palestine today. They have been then, and they were now communists and or Marxists. They are a plague on society. Their ideology is, at least in my opinion. You see this? Robert Kraft has pulled his financial support from Columbia University. The school I love so much, the ones that welcomed me and provided me with so much opportunity, is no longer an institution I recognize. The New England Patriots owner and Columbia graduate said on Monday, I'm deeply saddened at the virulent hate that continues to grow on campus and throughout our country. Kraft added, and it is my hope that Columbia and its leadership will stand up to this hate by ending these protests immediately and will work to earn back the respect many of us have lost faith. Now, I am not for quote unquote ending protests. Those students are certainly allowed to do so in a peaceful manner, as long as they're not infringing on anyone else's rights or putting their hands on anybody. That stuff, I mean, if they want to be, spend their off hours doing hashtagging Free Palestine or whatever it is that they want to do, I think that that's obviously totally fine for them to do, but that's really not what's happening. You see, then on Monday, dozens of staff members at Columbia University staged a walkout as they protested the NYPD being called in to control these protests last week. Well, it's turned into a mob. Now, it's not just people peacefully protesting. Then they put all these teachers, hands off our students, restore faculty governance. Well, they're the ones telling the kids to go out and do this stuff. Now, of course, the teachers aren't the ones going to prison, obviously. And these staff members held these signs. History professor Christopher Brown said, "I'm here because I'm so concerned about what's happening at the university. April 18th will be remembered as a shameful day at the university." I mean, what? I mean, you see these, they're calling every Jewish student a Zionist. That's just not true. They're absolutely out of control. Now, editorial are coming out. The president of Columbia must go. She's now privileging anti-Semitic protesters over all other students. Well, I wouldn't doubt that. Now, I won't call everybody in that group anti-Semitic. I don't think that that's a fair representation. Obviously, there are some people there that are that way. But my issue with it is the ones that are breaking the law. That is, they're trespassing. They're not leaving. They're marching on the police station, carrying flares. I mean, these do not seem like the actions of a peaceful protest to me. Ultimately, the Post said the tally had 134 people during a mass arrest when the processing system went down, slowing the process for all those detained. Well, I'm sure that they just let them right back out. And by the way, I don't know why these people don't enlist. I mean, it's a huge army of people. They could probably go over there and make a difference, especially the gay black guy who's leading the chants about it. You see this NYPD update. NYPD arrested all faculty who were protecting students at the encampment. Come support us. I mean, again, people who are doing the protesting are not the issue, but I'm not exactly sure if they are. It doesn't appear to be that they are in a public space. It appears to be, I assume they got arrested for trespassing, and people, this will only get people to do even more, Again, I don't think you should be arresting protesters, obviously. When people are marching in the streets, carrying flares, all this kind of stuff, it doesn't seem peaceful to me. Mass mob of Palestine activists marched through Chinatown in New York with flares demanding, quote, justice, whatever that is. Activists marched towards the NYPD police headquarters, demanding the immediate release of all protesters from Columbia and NYU. Well, the people that were arrested were given, I don't know, hours of chance to move, to vacate, because, they were trespassed. Eventually they said, hey, you guys can't hang out here anymore. You can't have this weird encampment anymore. Go to a public place. And by the way, for the rest of the semester now, Columbia University has had to move to hybrid classes. I mean, they have let this mob of people take over the entire school. The entire school. They've shut down classes. They've shut down learning. What about the other 99% of students there that are paying $90,000 a year? Are they allowed to get an education? Because not everyone has a politician mommy or politician daddy to fall back on them, like Ilhan Omar's kid. I'm sure Ilhan Omar's kid got in there on their own academic merit. I mean, now you have Columbia University faces calls for tuition refunds as school moves to hybrid classes. I think that they should. I absolutely think every student who has been disrupted by this, regardless of whatever their background is or race, they should demand refunds. because they're not getting what they've been promised. They're not getting what they've been paid for. It's vital that we keep learning and continuing during this time. We recognize conditions vary across our campuses and thus are issuing the following guidelines. There's literally anti-Israeli encampments on campus near the 7-day mark, apparently. Classes in this Haight campus will be hybrid, technology permitting, through the end of the spring semester. I mean, just get these people out of here. You want to go protest in a public space. You don't get the right to, impede all the other students who are just trying to get their job done, who are trying to get their education. They have every right to be there. You, however, do not have a right to have a weirdo encampment and impede other students who are just trying to get back to school. You want to protest? Cool. You want to hold a sign? Cool. But you can't be impeding people's movements. Of course, Trump speaking on it, saying that it's a disgrace. Again, I don't have a problem with the demonstrations. I have a problem when they get insane. When they're like this, when they're, you have garbage all over the ground, you have, people in tents. I don't know how many of these student people are even students. I mean, this looks like a war zone. This is not what I would call a peaceful assembly of people. And neither is this when you have, students barricaded in and going back and forth with PD to eventually storm and rip them all out of there. This is from a different university. I mean, I don't even understand. These are all just rich brats who have never had any real consequence in their life, effing around and finding out, and I couldn't care less. Because I guess my tax dollars are going to pay for their tuition anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and we'll talk to you again real soon.